everyone, this is Eugene Roddenberry.
Dr. Mohammed Noor.
Adam Nimoy, Leonard Nimoy's son.
This is Leonard Crowfoot.
This is Dr. Aaron McDonald, Star Trek Science Advisor and Lieutenant Commander McDonald on Star Trek Prodigy.
And you're listening to
Humanist Trek.
Humanist Trek.
You're listening to Humanist Trek.
the Humanist Trek podcast.
And you're listening to Humanist Trek, a fabulous, fabulous show.
Enjoy.
And don't worry, you can do your Temporal Mechanics 101 homework later.
That'd be a good license plate. How would I spell it?
Neutral zone?
Yeah.
NUTRL.
ZN.
ZN, yeah.
NUTRL ZN. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Welcome aboard.
Jean-Luc Picard to the Starship Enterprise.
You want to review your rapid progress?
That nonsense is centuries behind us. To the Starship Enterprise.
Oh, yeah?
That is enough, damn it!
Tempo, mon capitan.
To the Starship Enterprise.
But you can't deny that you're still a dangerous, savage child race.
Of the planet Earth.
You just don't get it, do you, Jean-Luc? That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
Jolon True, a very appropriate introduction for this episode. And welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a comedy Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And this is the last episode of season 1.
Yeah. Actually, it kind of went by pretty slow, but also pretty fast.
Yeah, I feel like it went faster than I expected it to.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts and memories from season 1? Like, what really stands out as, like, core season 1?
That it's not all about Picard, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was with some, earlier TOS, TAS, it was typically all about Captain Kirk, but we're seeing like really great character development.
Yeah.
Sadly, we lost Tasha, which we'll never get over.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But we're getting to know everybody, and it's really cool.
Listen, this is a soap opera in space. Anything can happen. Tasha could have a twin sister. I don't know, something crazy like that,
Or like from a different galaxy or universe or parallel universe.
Yeah.
There's something.
Yeah, anything can happen.
No one dies in space. No one ever really dies.
Q is set up in the first season as kind of not just a standalone episode, but he's going to be an ongoing concern. And, there's a lot of characters trying to learn about humanity from different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
You have Data, who's not a human and desperately wants to.
and then Worf is part human, or I couldn't remember if he was part human or just raised by humans or something.
Yeah, I think he's full Klingon raised by humans.
Yeah, so he's always battling how he sees himself and how other Klingons see him because he was raised by humans, and finding his Klingonness,
And Q looking at them from an omniscient position, a much more evolved species or whatever, like observing like you might at a zoo.
Mm-hmm.
Observing humanity.
I feel like they, in this first season, I don't know, I think they try a little bit harder to stick to the Prime Directive.
The Prime Directive, how often have you broken it?
See, the Prime Directive has many different functions.
The Prime Directive
is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
It's a very interesting proposition. Let me think it over.
A little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say they always do it, but
yeah.
Well,
one of the things that we know from this episode this week is that the Ferengi just really didn't work out as the big baddie of Star Trek. And so we're going to go back to the Romulan DMZ this week.
Easy is his name, and the boys coming
straight out of Romulus. We got to have a better bad guy because the Ferengi weren't cutting it as bad guys.
No, and the Klingons can't be because we're allies now. So, yeah. Speaking of allies, we're losing all of ours here in these United States. And things are just still garbage. The dumpster is still blazing. And it just makes me wonder, like, I wish I could just go to sleep and wake up in 500 years or so, and maybe things would be better.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe worse. I mean, I guess this is the premise of the hit cartoon Futurama, that Fry, gets frozen and wakes up hundreds of years later. This episode is an episode of Futurama.
And don't kill me because I still haven't watched it. So.
Tisk, tisk.
I know.
Well, let's go to sleep and wake up on the other side of the intro and talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 26, the final episode of Season 1, The Neutral Zone.
Commander, you'll soon be getting an intruder alert.
What? I got something, sir.
Intruder alert, sir. It's an old-style starship, sir. Constellation class, heading this way under impulse comm.
Number one, kindly take charge of our guests until we have time to decide what we're going to do with them. Sir, number one, keep them out of my way.
This week, it's Picard who's gone off to a conference in a shuttlecraft. And while they're sitting around waiting for him, the D picks up an ancient capsule of some kind, and it's from Earth. First of all, the odds of this ever actually happening, this tiny little capsule in the vastness of the universe, that they would stumble upon it, the odds are just incredible.
It is busted up to shit, though.
Yeah.
You know how like we launched satellites in the 70s and 80s, and some of them we just let them go because we're never going to get them back. So wouldn't it be possible? Like it's just floating out there.
Yeah, but what are the odds that the Enterprise would also happen to be in the exact point in space at the exact point in time that these two would meet?
I can't even begin to calculate the odds. Well, if Data were here, we could ask him.
That I think is a little reaching.
Because space is big.
Data is itching to do some ancient aliens archaeology on this old Earth craft. And Riker just keeps saying, like, dude, this is space junk. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. But Data is like, he's like, it's an opportunity to examine an ancient vehicle. Now, ancient meaning 300 years ago. I don't know that that's ancient, but it's pretty old, but like 300, 400 years ago. And the opportunity doesn't come around very often. So, and plus we got the time while we're waiting for Picard. Let's do it. We got nothing else to do.
Over on the ISS, Data and Worf find an old style disk drive and just bins piled up filled with 5.25-inch floppy disks laying around.
They go into this capsule. It just looks like it looks like TOS. It looks like the control panels on the old Enterprise from TOS.
In a great bit of comedy, Worf tries to go through the door from one module into the next, and he walks right into the door expecting it to open automatically, like it always does. And this is like deep cut funny because this actually happened all the time on Star Trek. The doors were run by some dude behind the wall pulling on a rope.
Yeah.
And if that dude missed his cue, you would slam into the door. And that happened over and over and over again. And we have blooper reels to prove it.
I love watching the blooper reels. Oh my gosh.
I do too.
But Data's like, here's the he just pulls the lever on the door. This is how you open the door back then. And they go into another chamber. It's dark, and there's a bunch of pods set up on the sides, each side, and there's a light in each pod, and it looks like some sort of cryo chamber. They dust off the frost, and they see a couple that have just dead people in them, just skeletons. And then they find one that actually has a woman in it, and she's not rotting.
The onboard computers have ceased functioning. I may be able to download this old-style disk drive back to the Enterprise.
After the theme, we see that there are 2 men also apparently intact in these containers. And Data and Worf start speculating about this situation. Back on the D, Picard's shuttle is arriving and he's ready to get off to the next adventure or whatever. But when Riker calls Data to return, Data's like, so about that, can I bring back these containers with people inside of them? And Riker's like, sure, man, whatever, just hurry. This should have necessitated a ton more caution than they gave it.
Yeah.
Where's the doctor? Where's the Encyclopedia Britannica entry on this old ship?
Right. Riker does push back on Data a little and says, are you suggesting that we transfer these people to these pods to the Enterprise? And Data's just, for some reason, he's all full of like empathy, and whereas no one else is. He's like, yeah, I don't think we should leave him here. So he's like, fine, just hurry up.
And Picard doesn't even weigh in on this at all. He just rocks up onto the bridge, throwing orders around like, let's get the fuck out of here.
They didn't tell him about it.
Yeah. At no point does Riker say to Picard, hey, before all that, before we go running off all over the galaxy to whatever thing you're hot about now, here's a thing you should know that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody tells him.
Nobody.
Instead, Geordi's like, wait, those coordinates will take us into the Romulan DMZ. Is that right? So in the staff meeting, Picard explains that 2 Federation outposts have been destroyed. Other star bases in the area aren't responding, so the working assumption is that the Ferengi really didn't work out as the new Star Trek villains, so we're back to the Romulans, baby.
Worf kind of grumbles, Romulans, Apparently they haven't heard from them in like 50 years since this incident called the Tomed incident, which I looked up. This incident was a confrontation between the United Federation of Planets and the Romulan Star Empire in 2311, and it cost thousands of lives. And it led to the signing of a treaty called the Treaty of Algeron.
Yes.
Which banned Federation research into the cloaking device. And so they can't look into it, they can't use it. But then also it led to the withdrawal of the Romulan government from interstellar affairs until 2364. So they disappeared for 50 years.
They got kicked out of NATO, did they?
I guess. They weren't being cooperative. But here they are now, for some reason.
And despite all that we learned in TOS, which I feel like was pretty substantial, they have a whole conversation here about how we really don't know much about these Romulans. Like we're right back to that first scene in TOS where we meet the Romulans for the first time. Did we not learn that much about them?
Apparently.
In TOS? I feel like we did, but okay. Anyway, Starfleet's idea is to send the D to try to establish positive relations, and if that fails, then at least kind of show them what they're up against. So he asked Troy for a full profile on the Romulans. And again, she's like, yeah, well, we don't really have a lot there's not much data, but I'll make something up.
Yeah. They've got 19 hours, 28 minutes before they get to the neutral zone.
And Picard underscores the approach here. We outthink them, not outfight them. And so we'll go off to do our individual research and meet back here in 6 hours. Beverly has apparently called Picard down to sickbay, and when he shows up, she's like, it's the people in those pods from that capsule. And Picard's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
What people? And that's when those nobody fucking told him anything. But he had some stuff on his mind. He had some heavy stuff on his mind about the Romulans.
I guess. I just gotta believe he would have been briefed on this immediately.
No, they did not. And she's like, oh, the people that Data beamed over. And he was like, I didn't know about that. And she's like, well, yeah, they were frozen and I thawed them. And he's like, you what? I was dying.
Right? This is that, as a boss, you really want to trust your people to make their own decisions and have control over their jobs.
Yeah.
And then they pull shit like this. Like, you brought them back, you brought those bodies over here, and then you fucking thawed them out. What the hell were all y'all thinking?
She they were trying to save a life, or what they thought was a life.
How to save a life.
She didn't know what else to do. Their pods were falling apart. And then this is where we learn they're all sleeping right now. They're alive and well, but they were dead. So they were frozen after they died. And so I didn't know that we could do that. Like, I didn't know that we in TNG could bring people back to life.
I mean, is this you put on the little clear
I guess
pads and shock their body back to life? But you're right. They talk about how they were frozen at the moment of death or whatever. So, yeah. But anyway, they all had minor medical conditions, which were deadly back then. But she was able to fix them up. No big deal.
Yeah, so heart disease, emphysema, liver damage. One of them had an aneurysm. Yeah, that's stuff that just doesn't happen in the TNG timeline.
Crusher explains that back then there was this crazy fad, cryonics, where people would freeze themselves because they were so scared to death. And, they thought hopefully maybe medicine would advance and they'd be unfrozen and healed. And it seems like it's worked in this case. And we see during all of this, we see the three people on biobeds sleeping. And Picard's like, got it. Mr. Data, you are in big trouble, mister. Report to sickbay at once.
Yeah. And was so weird. It's like Data was the one who wanted to save people, and Picard and the rest of the crew they weren't into it at all.
Yeah.
But I guess as Picard says, it was just that the timing was just so bad.
Right? Really, Data, now with this whole Romulan thing? And then he says something like, also, they were already dead. What more could have happened if you just left them dead?
I don't know. But they're alive now, so they got to deal with them.
Before we start waking them up, Picard calls Worf in for security, and immediately I was like, that's a bad idea. You taking 20th century people to the 24th century, and the Klingon is the one that you bring in. I mean, I guess I'd keep them scared.
Yeah, maybe. But maybe they weren't thinking about it. But
sure enough, they wake up the woman, and she sits up and sees Worf and passes back out while a very TOS-style musical comedy cue plays.
What is it, Doctor?
It's the people from the capsule.
Capsule people? What people?
The people Data beamed over.
I wasn't aware that he had.
Well, he did. And they were frozen. I thawed them.
You what?
Data pulled some biographical data from those old floppy disks. The woman is Claire Raymond, a 35-year-old homemaker, which Data hilariously thinks must have been a construction job. She made homes. She died of an embolism. Claire is played by Gracie Harrison, who was in the 1980 series The Doctors, which wasn't something that I ever watched.
I think it was some sort of soap opera, but I didn't watch it either. But she does look familiar.
Yeah, she did a lot of guest appearances too. Next up is Ralph Offenhouse, a 55-year-old financier who died of advanced cardiomyopathy. This sounds like the dating show. Next up is Ralph Offenhouse, 55. He's a financier from Detroit, Michigan. He's played by Peter Mark Richmond, who guest starred in literally everything. And finally, while the data on this guy's disc was corrupt, which sounds like a his boys can't swim kind of euphemism, the data in his disc was corrupt. His name was L.Q. Sonny Clemens, and his occupation apparently had something to do with music. And they wake him up, and he's like, say, you fellas got a pool table on this ship? Well, you've got trouble, my friends, and what you need is a boys' band. That's 2 Music Man references in a month.
I don't know.
Oh, God.
This guy, apparently, he had deterioration in every part of his body, according to Crusher, from massive chemical abuse. So he was a drinker
Mhm.
and probably a recreational drug taker.
Oh, for sure. Clemens is played by Leon Rippey, who was in The Patriot and the 1994 Stargate.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh my gosh.
he
Yeah.
had some decent TV runs on Deadwood and Saving Grace, neither of which I watched.
I didn't watch either of those, but I do remember him in The Patriot.
So they have a conversation about like how weird it is that somebody who did drugs, wanted to freeze and save himself from death because all that substance abuse surely meant he hated life. Didn't we learn anything from Tasha?
Right.
Nobody wants to become addicted to drugs, okay?
They're just trying to escape.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just trying to escape and numb themselves from the pain.
Picard's like, well, I've got bigger shit to worry about. This is your problem now, Beverly. And when he gets to the bridge, he tells Riker it's his problem too. Keep them out of my way.
So now they're all awake. They're in the guest lounge and Riker's trying to explain to them, you're on the Starship Enterprise. And Ralph is like, this is American. So they're 370 years in the past. So there's not necessarily America anymore. It's the United Federation of Planets, and Earth is a member. And they tell them, what year it is. And then Ralph wants to know about, is my heart okay? And they let them know that they've all been cured. And then Sonny, the guy that's down home, sort of, he's from the same place that McCoy is from.
Yeah.
in Georgia. He's like, what is that? And he's talking about Data.
This is a great bit, though.
I don't like it.
Data turns around to look behind him like, where is it?
What are you talking about? And he's talking about him. And Riker tells him about it's an android. You mean a robot? Of course, Data has to correct him and say, well, there's actually a difference between an android and a robot, And then Claire, the woman, wants to know about the dude with the forehead that made me pass out. He's a Klingon, which they don't know anything about, and it's just all too much for them. Everybody apparently paid a lot of money to get frozen.
Well, what's really interesting about this whole situation to me is that Sonny and Ralph seemed to know that they were going to be frozen, but Claire didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Claire's like, what the fuck is happening? Like, really, I did not know that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And we learned that back in the day, there were lots of companies peddling this process, promising that if they put them into orbit, that the power to those cryo units wouldn't be at risk like it would be if they were just on Earth. Apparently, the power grid is, shit. Oh, it is. Look at that. Must have been in Texas. Another fun Data moment, as Sonny explains he thought the whole thing was hooey, but decided to do it instead of leaving money to his ex-wives, and that sends Data down the thesaurical rabbit hole of what hooey means.
Hogwash, malarkey, jive, and intentional fabrication. I love how Data repeats the word just as Sonny says it in that southern accent. He's like, hooey.
Yes.
Oh, it's hooey?
So good. And what I loved about this moment, nobody fucking interrupted Data.
Yeah, good point.
Sonny let him go through all the things, and then he was like, yep, you got it. That's what I'm talking about.
And then that's when Claire figures out that it must have been her husband that put her in here against her will or whatever, because he was always up for these weird, new, foolish fads, but this is the first time it actually worked.
Ralph's like, I never doubted it. I bet my stocks are worth a fortune now. And Data's like, well, actually, those stock markets, that's not a thing anymore. Ralph wants to make a phone call and read the latest Wall Street Journal. And Riker's like, yeah, maybe we should slow it down here and take it easy. On the bridge, Troy is giving her presentation on the Romulans to Picard. She talks about how they're related to Vulcans, but they didn't follow the path of logic like Vulcans did. Rather, they're more than a little bipolar, arrogant about their superiority, and their curious nature and fascination with humans has been what's kept the peace, at least until now, presumably. And she also says they're not Cobra Kai. They don't strike first. They wait for you to make the first move.
Oh my God. So they're counterpunchers, as Picard called it. And that's good information to know.
Back in the lounge, I noticed this before, but we didn't talk about it. There seems to be a different style 3D board game in here. Like it's not 3D chess, and it doesn't see. I think we've seen 3D checkers in TOS before too.
I missed it. Damn
this is like 3 levels, and each level has. Remember the Twister board where you had the dots that you had to put your hands and feet on? It's kind of that pattern, but all one color. So like the one layer has black circles, and the next layer has red circles, and the next one has white circles or whatever, right?
I missed that.
I know. I want to know what it is, and I want to know how to play it. Not that we've come close to even beginning to learn how to play 3D chess. Holy shit, that's hard.
No one has time. Yeah. It's Space Twister. We'll just leave it at that.
There you go.
Space Twister. The new guests are getting to like test out the replicator, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonny, because he's, Southern, he's trying to order up like a Kansas City steak, country fried potatoes, a mess of greens, because I've not heard that. That's what we would say back in the day.
Uh-huh.
And then he's like, fuck that, just give me a martini.
And when the martini appears, they are all pretty amazed at this technology. And then Sonny's like, hey, I want to watch some TV, check on the Braves, they're probably still shit, but I'd like to know how it's going. And nobody knows what he's talking about, of course, but Data's like, oh, television. Yeah, that died out in around 2040.
Oh, so we've got 15 more years before we're no longer going to use or watch TV?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Are we going to give up the TV for the devices that we carry?
Yeah, probably.
Or are we going to have the smart glasses that you can just click bloop and it puts you in the movie?
Man,
or TV
okay.
show.
Okay. I'm going to buy this for myself. I don't need it, but it's the coolest fucking thing ever. So one of my friends had these glasses when I went on my trip, and I'm like, it's probably going to cost me a lot of money. I don't need it. But there's these sunglasses that will take a video for you. And there are also headphones. It's one of the headphones where it transmits through the bones of your skull.
Right. Yeah.
And then also you can take a photo. You just click and then take a photo of whatever you're looking at.
Damn.
Or a video. And then it hooks to your phone. I was like, I need that. I want that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't need it, but I want it.
I want it.
Finally, Sonny's like, maybe this future isn't so good. Maybe this isn't better. You all don't drink or watch TV? What the hell? And Picard interrupts on the intercom, calling Riker and Data to the bridge. And once they learn this is the captain, they all start in on wanting to speak to him ASAP. Ralph's got to make that phone call to the bank, and Claire wants to know what's going to happen to them now.
I think this is such an interesting episode. It's sort of an experiment of like, if we went to sleep or whatever, and then woke up 400 years in the future, but like, and you know how we're all about our own little bubble, and so are these guys. It's all about like, how much money am I going to make? I just want to like eat and drink, and then what's going to happen to me, and it's all about me and the entitlement. It's just, and then meanwhile in the future, they've not just got the Earth and their small little world to think about, they've got the whole galaxy. And it's just weird.
Sonny tells Data to come back after work, and they'll find a couple of low mileage pit wolfies and help him build a memory.
What the fuck is that?
Sonny's really trying to like best friend Data. He's like really interested in this guy.
Yeah. What is a low mileage pit woofie?
We probably don't want to know.
Okay.
It sounds to me like we're gonna go like prowl for girls.
Oh, is that what that means?
Maybe they're ugly ones that haven't had a lot of experience. Low mileage pit wolfies.
That's a horrible thing to say then.
Yeah.
If that's
what I think it means. Out in the hallway, Riker and Data walk and talk into the weirdest commercial break I think we've seen so far. Data wonders what will happen to the ancient Earthlings now. Doesn't understand what a pit wolfie is, like us. And Riker's like, I wish I could help you. That one I don't know. Like most of the time when Data doesn't understand a thing, somebody can help him, but not this time.
I'd like me a thick Kansas City steak and some country fried potatoes and a mess of greens.
Sour cream and onion chips with some dip, man. Some beef jerky, some peanut butter. Get some Haagen-Dazs ice cream bars, a whole lot of hot. Make sure chocolate. Gotta have chocolate, man.
Back in the ready room, they're 6 hours away from the neutral zone, and they can't contact any of the Federation colonies or stations in the vicinity. There were 9 outposts in the sector, and nobody's answering.
Data points out that a lot can change in 53 years, 7 months, and 18 days. So the information we have on the Romulans is probably outdated, which means the information the Romulans have on us is probably outdated too. So that might be some kind of advantage. Riker thinks the Romulans are hoping to encounter the Federation specifically to close that 50-year gap in their intelligence. And then they talk about like going on the offense, strike first, strike hard, no mercy, or however that goes.
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir!
But interrupted again because Ralph has figured out how to work the intercom. And he's like, hey, Captain Picard, are you there? I'm tired of you avoiding us. And, we've been really patient, but you need to come down here right now.
Picard's pissed because he's like, Riker, I thought I told you to keep them away from me.
Mm-hmm. Picard's all, I'm in an important meeting right now. I can't talk. But Ralph isn't having it. He compares the Enterprise to a cruise ship. And he goes on and on about this, which is enough time for Picard to leave the ready room, ride the elevator, and walk into the lounge, which I thought was great fun.
While this guy is still yelling at him on the intercom.
Yeah. He put down the phone, walked over to the elevator, rode up to the 5th floor. Yeah.
And again, that entitlement. He's like stomping his feet. I want to talk to the captain. No regard for what's like. You've been asleep for fucking 370 years, and you think you like own this place, like whatever.
Yeah. And Ralph in this scene insists that like his problems are way more important than anything that could possibly be going on this ship. He's got a lot of wealth apparently, and while his lawyer is long dead, surely his law firm survived, and he's gonna get his money. Picard's like, listen, a lot changes in 300 years. People are no longer obsessed with collecting money or Star Trek memorabilia. We work to better ourselves and each other. Hunger, homelessness, the want and need for possessions, all in the distant past now. Ralph thinks it's not about collecting things, but collecting power.
He is not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been about stuff. It's been about power.
Yeah.
Poor Claire is having a really hard time with this. She's over in the corner crying. And she's thinking about her family. That's like what you would expect people to think about is, she's thinking about
my kids.
She had children, she had a husband. And so Picard is like, I can't deal with no crying woman. So he calls Troy. Like, Troy, can you come up here? I need some help.
I have had that happen before.
I worked
at Disney, and I was one of the attractions coordinators in Fantasyland, and we had an international college program kid who was probably like homesick, and we're crying in the hallway backstage one day, and
you're like, oh no,
it was the three of us coordinators were like, no, we do not do crying employees. This is not, get somebody else in here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're approaching one of those outposts, a science station. So Picard gets called back to the bridge. But before he can go, Sonny asks him to see that pretty little doctor of yours. And Picard's like, correct, that pretty little doctor is mine.
That is so straight out of McCoy's playbook as far as like that demeaning, like pretty little thing or whatever. Oh. In the meantime, Picard's like, get these people under control. Because this is just a distraction. So off Troy goes to talk to Claire to see how she's doing. And Claire's like, oh, you're the shrink. And they don't know what that term is, but
Yeah, apparently that means we get over our stigma about mental health
yeah.
and mental health treatment.
Yeah.
If they don't know what shrink means. Yeah.
But yeah, she's missing her sons and she knows that they're all gone, her husband. And so Deanna offers to like help, let's see what happened. Let's get on Google and see what happened to your family. And all we need is like their name and date of birth and where they lived, and we can see if we can find it.
Claire decided that her husband did this because he couldn't think of going on without her. And so by doing this in some way, she never died. And he kind of kept on to that hope that maybe one day, which is a weird thing to do to your spouse without
consent.
Yeah. Yeah. Sonny's down in sickbay looking for a fix, something to jumpstart the morning and something else to shut it down at night. And
Jesus Christ.
It's coffee and weed. Coffee gets me up in the morning and weed puts me down at night.
No, it's like Coke and Xanax, isn't it?
Well, I don't
Cocaine?
do that shit.
No, me either. But
Drugs are bad, okay? Okay.
Like, I don't know, heroin. I don't know the hard stuff because his body was broken.
Yeah. And Crusher's like, I just fixed your jacked up organs. No more.
Mm-hmm. And we don't have that stuff anyway. So I could send you over to what's that one planet? The Breckians.
Oh yes.
I could send you to the Breckians.
Then he's like, all right, fine. Where's that android feller with the weird face? And Crusher's like, I'll let Lieutenant Commander Data know that you're looking for him. And then he says, you're just about the prettiest little doctor I ever did see, and smacks her on the ass. And I wanted so badly for Gates to have played this differently.
I wanted her to take out her phaser and fucking shoot him.
Yeah, she should have been outraged at this. Like that should have been so far in the past that happening to her would have shocked her.
Yeah. But she kind of giggled and said much obliged.
Yeah. Instead, they played it for like, this is what it's like in 1988 to be a woman in 1988. This is just a reflection of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Back in Claire's quarters, the Ancestry.com data has populated, and she's looking at 10 generations of descendants.
Wow.
And this is amazing, but also emotional because, like, everyone she ever knew is dead now. So she's kind of, like, starting all over alone in this universe. And she asks to be alone for a bit. And Troy's like, yep, I got you.
In Sonny's quarters, Data comes to see him as requested, and Sonny's looking to party. And Data's like, you want to throw a celebration? He's like, no. He says some folks, some suds, and some sound. So some music and just a little get together. And Data promises he'll speak to the captain. But he's the only one who's not really having that much trouble adjusting to he's just ready to party.
Yeah, he's a real, like, roll with the punches, go with the flow kind of guy. Yeah, sure, whatever. We're in the future.
It's the drug.
Is what it is, yeah.
But he does ask for a guitar. They don't have one, but Data thinks that they can create one from the replicator.
Yeah, so we kind of see this more later, but this Sonny character is a kind of Elvis figure. Conrad Birdie. You gotta be sincere.
Who the fuck is that?
It's another musical.
No. I have no
Bye Bye
idea.
Birdie. It's classic. God,
Sorry.
I have been watching musicals lately on Tubi.
Oh,
Cool. That free channel. So yeah, I'm kind of in musical mode right now. Sorry. You're going to get a lot of that. Data gets called back to the bridge because they're approaching the DMZ, and Sonny's like, what's a DMZ? And what's a Romulan? And why does that make me nervous? And also, we're not inviting these Romulans to our party, right?
You asked to see me.
Look, I'm about to go out of my mind for something to do. I mean, sitting here alone just don't get it.
I am programmed in multiple techniques.
a broad variety of pleasuring.
The Enterprise arrives at the outpost Delta 05 and there's nothing fucking left. No evidence of a conventional attack. It was not just destroyed, but it was, as Worf says, it was scooped off the face of the planet. It's gone. Probably most likely not a natural phenomenon, but they can't be sure. And so they're off they go to the next station to check that out.
Back in the lounge, the differences between these ancient Earthlings is starting to boil. Ralph's insistent on knowing what's going on around here. He's used to having, like, all the power, knowledge, and control over everything. And he's noticed the rise of tensions all around the ship. And Sonny is just like, whatever, man, we're dinosaurs to these people. We should just stay out of their way. Besides, that gold dude made me this here get fiddle. Want to hear more than words?
Said I love you is not the words I want to hear from you. Yeah, Sonny's like, just chill out. Let them do their job, you know?
Ralph decides he's going to go do something about it and leaves the room.
I'm going to write a letter. Like, he's the Karen of the 21st century. Yeah.
At the next station, they find the same destruction, and Riker and Worf tag team an argument for going to red alert and battle stations, especially if the Romulans have upgraded their cloaking ability over the years. But Picard talks them down to a yellow alert, no battle stations, as they continue investigating. In a hallway, Ralph sees a crew person come out of the elevator, so he goes inside, turns around looking for buttons, which was really funny, but instead talks his way to finding out where Picard is and going there. And again, where's the fucking security features?
Yeah.
The bridge should have a security clearance that this guy does not have.
Yeah.
Why do we put Charlie X on the bridge?
And there he goes. Meanwhile, on the bridge, they're doing important shit. Worf is he senses a disturbance in the force.
As if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
Happy May the 4th, everybody.
It's something large and moving, but he can't get a positive lock, and there's nothing showing up on the view screen. They put the shields up, and Riker says we need to transfer all powers to phasers. But Picard's like, wait, if it's a Romulan ship, then they'll know our intent, and they'll see it as like a threat or an act of violence, so we're just not going to do that just yet.
Don't start, none won't be none.
That's right. Don't start, no static. I don't start none, but won't be none.
Riker is pissed, though. He's like, outposts have been destroyed, countless lives lost. What the fuck, man? We got to do something. Suddenly, the Romulan ship seems to start decloaking. And again, Riker and Worf want to shoot first, assuming there may still be a weakness when the cloaking device disengages. But again, Picard says, no, we're not out here to start a fight. Worf loses the ship on sensors just as Ralph arrives on the bridge. And they assume that this means the Romulan cloaking technology has improved a lot over the years. And Picard says, that was a test. They wanted to see if we would shoot first, find out our intentions.
Mm-hmm.
So he made the right decision.
And then Ralph speaks up, and who is not even supposed to be on the bridge. And he's like, well, who the hell are they?
Riker orders him removed. But before anybody can do anything, the Romulans are back. And this time, they fully uncloak to reveal for the first time one of my favorite TNG era ship designs. I loved this ship.
Yeah, it's pretty badass, I have to say.
I'm trying to tell you that there is a situation developing on this vessel that directly affects us. And all you can talk about is that stupid guitar.
For some reason, Ralph is still on the bridge, guarded by some UCs. And Picard wants to make a phone call, but Worf is just still pissed off. He's like, all Romulans are bastards. They killed his father. Prepare to die.
He pulled a total Inigo Montoya. I was like, my Inigo Montoya. They killed my parents. We have to die.
Picard's like, Jesus, Worf, control yourself. And I thought this was very reminiscent of that TOS Romulan episode, Balance of Terror, Remember where Kirk tells that UC to leave your bigotry in your quarters? Worf is like racisting hardcore against the Romulans here, and Picard shuts it down.
Yeah, yep. And I think on TOS, that other kid, he lost somebody too. And
I think so.
And that was the reason.
So they make the phone call, and 2 Romulans appear on screen. Commander Tabak, played by Star Trek legend Mark Alimo, who we know better as Gul Dukat.
The famous Cardassian. I actually loved him in that. I mean, it was hard to hate him.
Yeah.
It was really hard to hate him.
And his number 1, Sub-Commander Thay, played by Anthony James, who was on Gunsmoke, Hawaii Five-0, Bonanza, Charlie's Angels. He kind of made that circuit. It turns out, in a interesting twist of episode, the Romulans' outposts were also attacked and destroyed in the same way the Federation's outposts were. And Worf's like, still, what gives them the right to cross the DMZ? And Reebok says, silence your dog, Captain.
Is this you call him Reebok?
Yes. Like, these people hate each other. Silence your dog. Not even.
Damn.
Mhm.
Like, not even addressing Worf directly and telling Picard to shut your dog up.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, damn.
Mm-hmm. The Romulans throw some shade at the Federation here, too. Reebok's like, once we saw the level of destruction, we knew it couldn't have been you weak-ass fuckers. And Picard's like, well, then who did this? And Ralph just cannot shut up. He's like, they don't know either. They're hoping you know, but they're too arrogant to ask. And he's right, but why the fuck is this guy not in the brig yet?
Yeah. Reebok, or Tabak, whatever you want to call him. He does admit that they don't know who it is. Someone's going around and just destroying outposts on both sides, as if they're trying to instigate a war.
So Picard proposes we work together, share our findings, collaborate, Maybe that would be one small step toward more peace for our peoples.
One small step for man.
And the Romulans agree, although they reserve the right to go back on this deal. They also give a bit of a warning here. They talk about how something more urgent had their attention, and during that time, not only were these outposts destroyed, but the Federation expanded more everywhere. And we want you to know we're back.
We're back.
I was thinking, and now I'm back to let you know I can really shake it down. Do you love me? Do you love me? Romulans back. All right.
Oh my gosh. There's so many music clips you're going to put in here.
I know.
So after Tabak ends the call, finally Picard's like, get this motherfucker off the bridge.
Troy's found a living relative, and she pulls up a photo, and Claire cannot believe it. He looks just like her husband, Donald, but it's actually her great-great-great-great-grandson. And maybe Claire could, go back to Earth and look him up.
She's going to go back to Jersey. That's where he is. She almost doesn't want to because she says, I'll be out of time. They're not going to know who the fuck I am, and I'm a relic. But Troy's like, well, he's family, though. So it's a good place to start,
For some reason, Picard has gathered the ancient Earthling men to tell them what's going on, but not Claire. Claire wasn't invited.
Interesting.
I did not like
she's
that.
having I didn't realize. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, she's talking about her feelings with Troy while the men are talking about the business.
Yeah, that's I don't like that. Yeah. Yep.
He's like, well, we're going to transfer you to the USS Charleston, which will take you to Earth. But Ralph's like, what's the point in living if there's no money or office for me to go to every day to avoid my miserable marriage or whatever? And Picard again explains the challenge is to improve ourselves, our society, and each other. Sonny's happy to have a new start here where nobody remembers him, and he invites Data to join him as his wingman.
Data's like, well, if I didn't have this job, I'd totally do it. He was in for it.
On the bridge, we learn that the Charleston is actually making an extended stop, which means our guests will be delayed getting to Earth. And Geordi's like, we could just take them to Starbase 39 Sierra real quick. That's only 5 days out of our way. And it'll save them a ton of time getting home. But Picard says that extra time may help them acclimate before getting to Earth. Riker wishes they could take them home. Having them around is like a visit from the past. But Picard reminds us that going backward is the wrong direction, trying to make the Federation great again or whatever. No, our mission is to go forward to the next adventure.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'll be glad to be relieved of this cargo.
Me too.
It is done, and perhaps just as well.
Yeah, but you know, I learned something today.
I sincerely hope that this is the last time that I find myself here.
You just don't get it, do you, Jean-Luc? You see, of all the species, yours cannot abide stagnation. Change is at the heart of what you are. That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
And then it just ends there, and I was like, "Wait, what?
Yeah,
That's it?
yeah.
I was a little disappointed because I was watching it and had fallen asleep. I felt like I'd fallen asleep for like forever, but it was only like 2 minutes, and then I wake up and it's over. I'm like, that can't be it.
Yeah.
But that was it. That was all this episode did was introduce the Romulans,
Mhm.
and then also show how much has changed in 400 years.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so 2 scenarios here. You are dying and they freeze your body and you wake up 400 years later.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about that? What would that, like, I'm hopeful that things will get better, but as the Futurama introductory episode shows, like, more wars will happen in that time. Like, more bad shit is going to happen. And, you know, if your cryo tube makes it that far, right? If it doesn't, if things don't go completely to shit. Yeah. What's it going to be like when you come to?
Like, if I am the way I am now, I will accept that everyone I know is dead. It may take me a few moments, but and then I'll just want to know everything about what's happening now. Like,
Yeah.
I won't be stuck in the past like these people are, and
Mhm.
I'll realize, okay, I'm gonna have to change, and I want to know exactly what's happened, and I would want to catch up on what's happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting, the idea of just the thinking about, like, oh, I want to go study the history of what happened between the time I was frozen and the time I woke up.
Mhm.
How interested in that history I would be,
Mm-hmm.
more so than the prehistory, the history that happens before me, and going back
Mhm.
and studying that was
Mhm.
kind of a slog, as a kid coming up. But the idea of, like, oh, this is the 300-year gap of while I've been asleep, what happened in those 300 years, that would be so interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I won't be like, I won't be like Ralph and bitch better have my money kind of thing. Like, it's too late for all that, and it's all that
Yeah.
infrastructure is probably gone. I'm as far as the Earth knows, I'm dead anyway. So
Yeah.
you get to like reinvent yourself, number one, and
Mhm.
then I definitely just want to know. Look at all this technology around me. It's been
Yeah.
300 years.
Show me everything.
I'm on a ship. Like, why were they not amazed that they were on a spaceship
Right.
with all this technology?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be in heaven.
Then the second scenario is, suddenly your great 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 grandmother shows up,
Hmm.
unfrozen at age 50. How fucking weird would that be?
That'd be so cool.
Like, the idea they're gonna send Claire back to Earth to, like, look up her descendants or whatever. Like, okay, imagine you're the descendant and that long lost relative shows up.
Yeah,
That'd be fucking trippy, man.
that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think about, like, just my great great grandparents and how interested I would be in learning about their lives and hearing their stories and all of that. Like, Yeah, that would be insane.
Yeah. I feel like they were just focusing on the wrong stuff when they woke up.
Yeah.
Like I said, they were in their little bubble and they couldn't think outside of their little small world when things had progressed so much more.
Yeah.
While they were asleep.
And of course, Data playing along with Sonny, kind of being his wingman in a way, getting him his guitar and all that stuff. This is Data observing humanity to learn from it.
Yeah, and Sonny was an interesting character.
Yes.
And those are the types of people that Data flocks to anyway.
Mm-hmm. And otherwise, this is a reintroduction of the Romulans as our new ongoing threat because the Ferengi just didn't quite work out. How do you like the new Romulans? They look similar to TOS Romulans, but with kind of a punch up.
Yeah. I mean, like a really bad Vulcan.
I like the uniforms of the Romulans in TNG. I loved them in TOS too, but I like the TNG variation too. Of course, it's the late 80s, so they get the big giant shoulder pads. That's their new as their new uniform. All right. Well, did anybody die in this episode?
Nope. Well, probably some people on the space stations and whatever, but
yeah. That didn't happen in episode, so we don't care.
Yeah.
We can handle all the pleasantries later. Now, let's get down to business.
I am willing to pay handsomely for you.
I think you've had a little too much to drink.
Now, what do you know about my money?
Your money?
The money he stole!
You stole his money?
Those vouchers I gave you were every bit as good as Latinum.
You can spend Latinum almost anywhere. Those vouchers are only good at your bar.
We want to thank everyone that supports the show over at patreon.com/humanisttrek. We especially want to thank our founding admirals. A special thank you to Russell, Ali, Peter, Sarah, Bruce, and the Bear and Curad podcast. And this week, we have a new ensign to welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, Ensign Arturo.
Welcome aboard, Arturo. Ensign Arturo.
Thank you so much for supporting the show.
Yeah.
Captain, Starfleet Academy is requesting an update on our estimated arrival.
Finalists, please take your seats.
I must admit you have a very fast mind. Once I realized it was a trick question, there was only one answer.
Although only one student will be chosen for the Academy, any of you could easily qualify. Candidates, good luck.
You got called to the superintendent's office. It's a story I'd like to hear.
Becca's back now with the answer to this week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge for the Neutral Zone. Remind everyone the question.
In this episode, we see an unnamed Science Division ensign with no lines exit a turbo lift and walk down a corridor. Who played this role?
I guessed maybe some politician's relative, and Ali guessed some soap opera star, and we have a listener guest this week. Our listener guest comes to us from Bear, who is one of our patrons, and Bear guessed it's likely a family member of the crew, ? But I'm gonna guess it's Berman's mistress at the time.
Those are all, of course, incorrect.
The Admiral is definitely incorrect.
To bring us the correct answer this week, please welcome former production assistant and personal executive assistant to Gene Roddenberry, television writer, author, leader in the humanist movement, and friend of the show, Susan Sackett.
Susan Sackett? Oh my gosh!
Oh my gosh!
Hi. I'm an answer to a trivia question.
Oh my god! So you are the woman in the hallway.
That's me.
Oh.
The person who emerges from the turbo lift and turns to the right.
I remember the scene, and I'm like, I wonder if that's significant when I was watching it, and I did not dream that Becca would ask the question. So,
I was on screen for like maybe 30 seconds, not even that long. They spent all day doing hair, doing makeup, putting me into the uniform, taking me out of the uniform. It was an experience.
Speaking of the uniform, you got to wear a scant in that scene, and I love the scant uniform, the skirted uniform. I love it so much.
I was told that had been worn by Marina Sirtis.
Oh wow!
Time.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, my research indicated that was her scant as well. So
yeah.
That is so awesome. I happen to have, just apropos of nothing, my copy of Susan's book, Inside Trek, My Secret Life with Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. Pick that up. I'll put a link to Susan's website where you can get all of that.
You can buy it in my store. I have a store on eBay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Go there.
Yeah, we'll link to that. We would love to have you back sometime to just chat about all of your experiences in Star Trek. And so I know we have a very limited amount of time with you today. Allie, do you have a question for Susan?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to start. Like what's
I know, right?
what are some of your most fond memories of just being on set? Or something that nobody knows, like or something funny or that
you can read my book to find out.
Nice, good point. Love that.
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Not secret. There are no more secrets. I enjoyed being on set. The actors were always friendly and they were fun. My favorite was Michael Dorn. He would greet me with a kiss, and he was a good kisser. That's a secret.
I love it.
Nice.
Yes.
Oh, how wonderful. Oh my gosh.
Okay, my question for you this appearance is, what is your favorite humanist moment from Star Trek?
Oh.
We didn't really talk about it, but we mentioned leader in the humanist movement. You're involved in your local humanist community. You have been giving presentations on the humanism in Star Trek for many, many years. Do you have a favorite moment?
Yeah, there's a scene where in Who Watches the Watchers where Patrick Stewart is supposedly trying to defuse a culture that has gone religious where they've gotten past all of that. And there's a speech that he gives when they're around the table discussing what he's going to do. And he says, years ago, they gave up their superstition and you want me to go down and reintroduce that now? No.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really a good moment.
Yeah. And we often talk about, that's sci-fi is great for sneaking in those things to think about in a society that would otherwise not necessarily embrace those questionings. And Star Trek did it better than most. Star Trek's kind of the gold standard for questioning those things that you can't do in mainstream TV or whatever.
There was a lot of questioning. Gene said that when the original series, and we're talking about Next Gen, I know, but the original series was being done, we were having that war in Vietnam, war. And he couldn't outright say anything about, that, but if he could set it in a far off planet somewhere with people with polka dots or whatever and purple skin or whatever, he could talk about it without directly saying anything.
Yeah.
And he got his point across about not interfering with other cultures and things like that. So there was a lot of good stuff in Star Trek like that. And Gene Roddenberry did it.
Yeah. Well, again, we would love to have you back sometime for a longer discussion about your life and your work in the humanist movement and Star Trek and all of that stuff. But we're going to be out of time for today. So this has been the most pleasant surprise ever. Oh my gosh.
I know.
How much
Thank
fun.
you. You made my weekend.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming.
Awesome.
Okay, everybody.
Awesome.
Thank
you so
Live long,
much. Live long and
prosper.
prosper.
Thank you so much. Well, that's it for Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1. Join us next week on Humanist Trek for Trek Word with listeners. Again, we are going to have such a great time playing with some of our patrons. This time doing Star Trek The Next Generation Trek Word. We'll see you then.
Glory to your house.
Make it so, number one.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcast. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.